In 2017, Netflix released a film based on the worldwide phenomenon, anime and manga, Death Note. Death Note is one of my favorite anime of all time, and when I heard there was going to be a movie, I was terrified. After hearing more and more about it, I was even more afraid, and by the time it came out, well, we're going to talk about that right now. So here's how I'm going to break down this review. I'm going to talk about the things I liked, the things I didn't like, and overall its contribution to anime live action. Alright, so without further ado, let's get into it. Okay, so let's start off with some positive, things I actually liked about the film. First off, the introduction wasn't bad. It certainly wasn't the same as the anime, but the changes weren't that bad. It definitely set the tone as a new take on the franchise, while also explaining the supernatural element in a fast pace. I'm mostly referring to the scene with Light and Ryuk in detention. Another thing I liked was Mia's character. In a way, she kind of represents the conflict of the story, because without her, the story doesn't really progress into anything. She is what drives Light to do what he does, but she is also the enemy against Light, and the thing that wants to separate him from his humanity. I like that they gave the female role more attention and importance in the story this time around. The cinematography was very on point. I really liked the use of neon lighting and enjoyed a lot of the topsy-turvy camera angles. I also liked the design of the book. I wasn't expecting to point this out, but the design had more importance than I thought. After seeing cheap imitations trying to be taken seriously, I can tell you that the book in this movie was actually easily believable and I liked it a lot. Okay, so that's about everything I enjoyed. Now for the things I didn't like. I have a video titled Everything Wrong with Death Note that goes over the majority of the story changes and other things that I didn't like. So if you want to know more about what's wrong with this film, go ahead and check that one out. But for this video, I'm mainly going to include things that have more to talk about. Now the main issue with this movie that I think a lot of people can agree with me on is that all of the brain power that's at the core of Death Note isn't present. The movie doesn't take on the intellectual prowess of the manga, but it keeps a lot of the initial story and characters, which in turn kinda ruins them. Here's some examples of how the brainpower of the franchise is completely taken out of this movie. L says Kira is in Seattle. The name is intentionally misdirection, and that's all the explanation we get from how he figured that out. But that's about all Light thought of to cover his tracks. No brainpower. Light basically snitched on himself. In the anime, the name Kira was given to him. He didn't create it out of hopes to impress a girl. But in this movie, he blatantly gives detectives something to investigate before they've even made it apparent that they've caught on to him. Again, no brain power. When L says he's a coward, he's not an omnipotent being, Light getting triggered by that doesn't feel right because all he wants really is to impress Mia. And everything outside of that, with how there's a serious mass genocide case being investigated, doesn't even appear on Light's radar, really until that moment, which is why it doesn't feel real. He hardly cares about anyone finding out about him, so why would he care that he's not a god? He can't live up to Mia's expectations? If that were the case, he wouldn't have shown her the notebook in the first place. The confrontation between L and Light meant absolutely nothing. There is no game of wit between them. There's no struggle of holding composures. It's like watching what would happen if you put a Death Note in a world of stupid people instead of ones that are intelligent. That's exactly how it feels to watch this movie, and that's why it's nowhere near as entertaining or intriguing to watch as the anime. You know how Light has that intense, dramatic monologue about killing criminals and becoming the god of the new world after he's decided what he wants to do with the book? Yeah, it may come off as a little eccentric compared to the more subtle taste of film, but that monologue is what sold me. It's what I needed to believe Light's motivation for doing everything that he does, and it kinda set the stage for his character. In this movie, we don't get that. Yes, he does have somewhat of a monologue while you get this montage of him and Mia hooking up and the Kira cult beginning to form, but it's not the same. Another thing I want to address is the Final Destination style gore for the kills. I think that it was inevitable cinematically for the film to take this route, and don't get me wrong, I love the Final Destination movies and franchise, but my question is, does that level of grotesque violence really have a place in Death Note? Just something to think about. It's funny because Death Note has such an established style already. It's weird to see the filmmakers not take any inspiration from it. The holy chorus that lingers throughout the astonishing soundtrack, the heavenly, preluding mosaic paintings in the intro, the dramatic thoughts boiling inside these characters lying underneath their stone-cold surface, held down by their immense, humane composure. Instead, we got,
Holy Jesus! What is that? What The fuck is that?
So in case you didn't know, on this channel, we're all about discussing the study and progression of anime live action. So how does this film contribute to that cause, and what does it spell for the future of anime live action? One thing I really want to point out that I kind of mentioned earlier is that the cinematography, production design, and overall look of this film is great. It's actually the best it's ever been in any Death Note live action. If you go and you watch the Japanese anime live action adaptations of Death Note, they do not look nearly as good as this film. In terms of just appearances and the look, this film actually nailed it. Because in the Japanese ones, you see Ryuk, he looks like a PS2 CGI character. Like, he just doesn't fit inside this real world film look. Whenever I see that, it just takes me out of the film because it doesn't look like a film company made this. It looks like a few elementary school kids with a camera made it. Whereas in this film, they really made the look feel believable. You know, Ryuk looks actually kind of terrifying, and the way that they incorporated him into all these dark places and scenes that have low light, it not only works for his character, but it really helps create a sense of feeling and tone to associate with him, while also making him feel real. There was never a second where I was like, oh, Ryuk looks fake, you know? There were times where I thought, oh, he looks ugly, he looks actually terrifying. But in terms of Ryuk's design, I think they did really well. And like I said, that goes for the design of the whole film. Like, even the stuff that's happening, all the kills and everything, it looks real, I believe it. But if you look at some of the kills in the Japanese live action Death Note, like I said, a lot of them just look kinda wishy-washy. They just look like things that you would see made by people that aren't film professionals. So I think that's definitely the most important and positive thing to take away from this film. Anyways, I do have two other videos, one titled How to Fix Death Note Live Action, and the other titled What Will the Sequel Be Like? Because in case you didn't know, this film is getting a sequel. So that goes over what to expect and more information regarding the plans for the next Death Note live action coming soon. But that's about all I have for this one. Long story short, if you want to make a perfect anime live action adaptation, just hire your boy to direct it and be in charge. That's all I'm saying. But since I'm not at that level of hierarchy yet, you could do whatever you can to support me. I'd really appreciate it. Only after you leave a like on the video to help YouTube let other people who might be interested get a chance to see the content and overall give more exposure to your boy. And remember to subscribe and hit that bell to stay up to date with all my videos, and stay tuned for more anime live action content. Until then, see you guys in the next one.